Welcome to this episode of Rounders Reconnect. And it's actually with great excitement. I've been reading a lot about this person that's on this episode today, about his amazing 50 years of experience working at all levels within Rounders. So he's going to be able to tell us, fill in a lot of the historical gaps, but also tell us a lot about the changing face of Rounders over those years. So welcome, Alan.
Welcome yourself.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for this interview. Tell us a bit about where were you born and your first memories of getting involved in Rounders.
Right. I was born in Sheffield in 1951, and first involvement was with school. So I went to Hucklow Road Junior School in Sheffield and played in the Rounders team. And fortunately, we won the school's trophy when I was 11.
Right. So was that primary school then?
Yeah, that really made me interested.
Yeah. So was it a mixed team then?
It wasn't in primary school. And then, unfortunately, when I went to senior school, the boys could only play football or cricket. So I had a little hiatus there between 11 and 16.
Oh, right. So you weren't allowed to play Rounders because you were a boy?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is fascinating. It's also one of the reasons why I was very, very keen that it should be mixed Rounders. And I'm still pursuing that to try to make it truly inclusive, really.
Yeah,
Men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are mixed leagues, aren't there?
There are mixed leagues, and but there used to be many more. It's something that I think can easily be rectified just by going to the right places at the right time. And I've just started to do that this week.
Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it, when you sort of look back in history and sport and the gender specific roles within school sport of what you were expected to do. You say, I was never allowed to play, I wanted to play rugby.
Yes.
And I was never allowed to play rugby. So I used to sit in the corner. They used to give me a rugby ball at the corner of the pitch to say, go off and play with yourself, because I refused to do netball and hockey.
Right.
Yeah. So you had that where you didn't do any Rounders. So then what happened then?
Well, I left school, and my first job was working in engineering, and that's where I met. I heard about and then met Terry Woolhouse MBE, who became my mentor in the game at all levels, and just helped so much. Yeah. So I joined the Works Rounders team, which was a mixed team. So we played in the Sheffield Works Mixed Rounders League.
So that would have been in the 1960s, wouldn't it?
Yes, it was 1967.
Yeah, because Works leagues were really big then, weren't they?
They were, and again, I think Terry was the one who pushed them. So maybe why he got his MBE.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've talked to a few other people that's how they sort of continue playing, was the different Works leagues within their cities. And obviously, I'm presuming that was within Sheffield, was that, Alan?
It was, yes.
Yeah. So how big? Tell me a bit more about that Works league, and who did you play and how often? And
yes, well, when I first started, there were three mixed leagues, mixed teams leagues, and two women's leagues. So, and we obviously played against each other in the league, but we also played outside the county because we entered the national mixed tournament that was there. It was an open tournament, and that was so big. It would be pared down to 24 teams, in a tournament. And the first one was, I believe, in Coronation Gardens.
Really?
Yeah, that that happened because Terry Woolhouse, Mick Naylor, and myself, we put together what we called a Sheffield Select team, and we played a team from Rill. The following year, we called it the England Select team, and we played against Wales in Rill. The year after that, the open tournaments for national teams was started. I can't remember who started it, but it was probably Terry.
So then winners from all around, was it England and Wales, or was it?
It was open, so you didn't have to basically qualify to go in. So it did have the elite teams from around the country, but it also had teams that weren't so good but were keen to play, and we didn't exclude those.
Yeah. So everyone just came and played rounders. About 24 teams, did you say?
That's right, yes. Yeah.
Wow, I bet that took a bit of organising. So what was your role in that organising then?
Well, again, I used to Terry did all the most of the paperwork, and I did the logistics of it. So organising the leagues and whatnot is what I did. Yeah. Teddy did the rest.
So how long so were they all works teams or just any team?
They were open, it could be anybody. Yeah.
And there were mixed teams and women only teams, I'm guessing, that could turn up.
In the nationals, it was only mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was like going to a picnic.
I was going to say, it sounds like a big carnival.
It was, because they'd be, in those days you didn't have substitutes and whatever, but so they'd be the team, but the husbands, wives, if they weren't playing, the kids, aunties, uncles, grandma, everybody went.
Oh wow. And was it over a day or a weekend?
Well, we used to make it a weekend because it was in Rill, so it's a seaside, so all the Sheffield teams went over the weekend. The tournament was only on the day.
Yeah. Wow, it sounds, and that was late 60s, 70s.
It was probably, I think it started about 1972.
Right. And how long did that continue then? That
continued right up until the late 90s, I think, and suddenly it stopped. And I think that was because we got older, and the teams had got better, and it's something I tried to push. I tried to push people to have reserve teams and bring your families through. Terry's team did that, and they were Christchurch Shoe Club initially, and they only stopped playing in the Sheffield League 3 years ago.
Oh wow.
So so they were getting on a bit, but
yeah.
Most of the other teams they sort of stopped when they were in their 30s, whereas Terry's team was still playing their 50s. And I was still playing when I was 72.
I was just going to ask, when did you? That doesn't sound like you ever did give it up.
No, I wouldn't have done if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
But I won't give it up when I coach. I do all my coaching for free. So
right. Tell us a bit more about your coaching, and how did you get involved in coaching? And
well, really, I mean, it was because Terry and I and Mike had started this England team, and then I think it was 1972 that a National Rounders Association, as it was then, wrote me a nice letter inviting me to become a member of the committee as under-21 manager. So obviously that made me the coach, and I had to pass the coaching course and the umpire courses. So that got me into coaching, and I also qualified as a teacher 2 years later. So I took that coaching into my teaching background, and I started organising trials for the England team then. But we started off in South Yorkshire, but we knew that there were brilliant players in Leicester and Nottingham and Northampton, so we invited their best players to come, and I realised that there was a massive difference between teaching and coaching. I think teaching is telling you all about what is right, and coaching is improving you rather than telling you hold your bat here, hold your bat there, bowl like this, bowl like that. It's I used to say, you were out then. Do you know why? Well, I missed the ball. But do you know how you missed the ball? Did you miss it high or did you miss it low? And very often they say, I don't know. So I'd say to them, well, you drop your shoulder. So if you don't drop your shoulder, you probably hit it. So I used, I enjoyed the analysis of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that level of detail. I guess that's your
yeah.
engineering background as well, isn't it?
Well, I suppose that is. I never thought of it like that, but you're probably right. Yes.
Yeah. That level of detail, which is so important because you trained as a coach and an official, an umpire, didn't you?
Yes.
But then you really got into the actual rules of rounders, didn't you, and helping develop those?
I did. For 10 years, I was sole arbiter of the rules for National Rounders Association, and together with another vice president, Brian McKinney, we sat down, went all the way through the rule book, line by line, word for word, and we took out all the hints. We made, and put them in the right orders, and made sure that these were hints, not rules, because at that time people thought the hints were rules. So we rejigged it all and made it better I think we made it better. It's improved.
Yeah. So where did the rules start off then? Was that just developed as it went, or was there
I think, oh wow, this is going back. I've actually got a book of rules for sport dating back to the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And in it, there's baseball, rounders, and new rounders, modern rounders.
Yeah.
So the rules started in the 1800s. I've even got a medal that was presented to someone in the Blackburn League from 1883, I think.
Really?
Yeah, so it was big in the past.
Yeah, so it's older than 80-year-olds.
Oh yeah,
rounders, isn't it?
The 80-year-old just refers to the National Rounders Association, which was 1943, I believe. So that's when the Sports Council at the time, the schools adopted it and took it over. So that was 1943.
Wow. So in that early 1800s, who was playing rounders then?
I think mainly it was Liverpool and Lancashire area. And I believe that's also why Americans play baseball, because it was taken over to the States from Liverpool. I know that's true, even though they dispute it. But about 15 years ago, I did a television program for American TV, and we looked at baseball, softball, rounders, stool ball, all the games that are very, very similar.
Yeah.
And look for the history, and it's quite clear that rounders predates the baseball.
That's fascinating because it's interesting because I'm from Hull originally, and we had big baseball, softball in Hull.
Yes.
Because of a bit like Liverpool, I guess, because they're ports, aren't they?
Yes,
and
right.
Because of the military and the Americans coming over, and in fact, Hull KR, my rugby team, which I read ages ago and I'd forgotten, but I've just reread, used to host the local baseball team.
Right.
on their pitch. Yeah, yeah, had it
Right.
all marked out. Fascinating, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the history of it all. Wow. So we need to build that into this project then, because that's
Well, I
absolutely
think
fascinating.
where the Americans become unstuck is that the original game of rounders was called baseball. Just they were bases, and
Yeah, yeah.
but it and unfortunately again I had the last piece to camera, so I said yes, it was called baseball, but the game was rounders.
Oh, have you got that piece? Have you got
I
that?
haven't, and I never pursued asking for a copy, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it somewhere.
That would be lovely to have it part of this
Yeah,
project, because that
yeah,
is a really great addition to what we're collecting. And I just think a history of sport is just fascinating of
I
how it
know,
grew. And
I know.
because rounders is such an inclusive sport and it can be played anywhere, can't it, by anyone? So
Well, that's what. Oops, I've lost you there. You're back again.
no, I'm here.
Well, I don't know when it was, but it must be 30 years ago. Brian and I sat down to invent a strapline for rounders, and the strapline for a long time was rounders, a local. Sorry, what was it exactly? Let me think. All right, rounders, a national game played in local leagues,
Yeah.
and we started to pursue it. So, and you were saying you came from Hull. One of my first jobs was I went to meet the people involved in rounders to help develop rounders in Hull.
It's very big in Hull still.
Yeah, it is now. It's got bigger and bigger and
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's grown at the same rate as South Yorkshire's folded.
Oh, really? That's
Unfortunately, yeah.
interesting.
So that's why I'm working on it now. Trying to get it
Yeah,
right.
yeah, because it was Sheffield, from what you were saying, was like the heart and soul of rounders for a long time. Is that right?
It was if in the modern game, if you think of it from the 60s,
Yeah.
when the national competitions, because the national competitions is what really put it on the map. And yes, probably the first 5 or 6 years of national tournaments was won by Sheffield teams, but then Leicester got good, and they sort of took over.
Yeah.
So
So how many teams in the height then where they're in Sheffield?
there would have been probably about 40 teams.
Wow, that is
Uh,
amazing, isn't it?
yeah, it is, and I'm sure with a little bit of help, it could get there again.
Absolutely. Well, it's a very active city, actually, isn't
It
it?
is. Yeah, well,
Very
it was
active
it
city.
was a city of sport, and we did
Yeah.
have the Minister of Sport in Sheffield.
Oh, yeah, you did, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say, very, very, as we said, a very active city that the potential's there and it's such a, as you say, community game, isn't it? That it brings communities together.
Well, we used to push that, especially when I became development director. We used to push that we couldn't think of another sport that was totally inclusive like rounders
Mm,
is. Because most sports, even football's inclusive up to like I think it's 12 years old, is it? Then
mm,
girls have to
yeah,
play
yeah.
in women's leagues. Whereas rounders isn't. Rounders you play. I mean, we do have local rules and we have recommendations that maybe you don't play under 14 with adults, but that's not hard and fast. I mean,
Mm.
in our league, up till us folding a year ago, we used to if kids came and they were 6 year olds and they wanted to play, they played, So
Mm.
and as I say, so in the last time I played, we had I'm trying to think whose daughter it was. So we had probably a 10-year-old and I was 72.
Wow.
So and
Wow.
that was a girl and a man,
Yeah.
so you don't get more inclusive than that, do you, really?
No, you don't. That's a really great example. So tell me a bit. You just mentioned around you were employed as development and competition director. So
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about that. When did you start that? How did you get involved in that? And
Well, that was a progression because when I joined the NRA,
National Rounders Association.
yeah,
Yep.
then I actually became I took on many roles because people were dropping out because they were getting older and jobs were becoming available. So I was under 21 manager, then I became England teams manager, then I was coaching officer, then I was rules officer, then I was national office manager, and then I was general secretary. so so when I was general secretary, the hub of the National Rounds Association was here where you're looking at now.
Mm.
It was
Oh, right.
office in my house.
Oh, wow.
So somewhere I've got a cutting from Sheffield Star with a picture of the road sign and Alison Howard, who became CEO, myself and Terry Woolhouse, all here because we were the three left standing in effect, and we ran the National Rounds Association from here.
I'd love to see all that. That would be fabulous. I'd love to see your cuttings and your memorabilia, because I bet it's pretty phenomenal what you've collected.
I've got millions.
Good.
I've been collecting stuff with Terry. Fortunately, Terry's a hoarder, so nothing.
Oh, I love a hoarder.
Nothing gets thrown away. But generally speaking, it's all to do with his club, which is Christchurch Youth Club. So if anybody played for England, Terry's kept that cutting, and so
yeah, that's all so important that we do keep that, actually, because you forget.
Well, we do, yeah. It's Terry and I don't seem to forget, but I know other people do. Yeah.
Well, what's important about this project is to make sure that we get it all down, because it's all right, you and Terry remembering, but we want to shout out from the rooftops to everybody else to hear about it and the history of it and the great things that you did in the sport.
Well, it is interesting that a year ago I have an allotment, and a year ago I was on my allotment and a new person came onto the allotment at the side of me, and he looked at me and said, "Alan." So I said, "Yeah." He says, "We used to play rounders together." So that's two 70-year-olds chatting to each other then about rounders 50 years ago.
Oh, wow, I love that.
So he's remembered it fondly. And then I found out his wife used to play first post for their team as well, and so there's still one or two people around that
yeah,
still really, really interested.
and I bet you had some stories to tell, didn't
you? We do, and you know what? It's always seems to be not the league meetings, but the cups or the national tournament, especially the national tournament. Everybody loved the national tournament. It was like football going to Wembley. You'd live for that day. So it was really exciting.
So your involvement, so just back to this, so you were a player, you coached, I think you did quite a lot in your coaching, didn't you, as a tutor and an assessor, and do you still do that?
I don't. The main reason I don't is I don't want to charge anybody. And if I go through the correct route with Rounders England, then people are paying. So I prefer to go along and coach for free and put them on the track. I don't want to be the one that's getting paid for it. So I still coach, but I don't assess.
Ah, right. Okay. So when you obviously got involved in the coaching, and you did right up to international, local to international, didn't you, from what you're saying?
Yes, the coaching manuals, well, they weren't manuals really. Initially, coaching was very, very basic from a little white book. But when Rounders England came on the scene, and then Alison Howard, the CEO, she arranged that all the coaching would be re-looked at. She appointed a coaching director, Karen, and well, we all helped to rewrite the new coaching manual. So and that was a massive improvement.
Yeah. Bit of a standardization then, I imagine.
It is. I mean, I don't I always think that standardization is the best thing, because with the UKCC it is standardized so across every sport, and I can understand why, but I like the nuances, and I like coaching for the tactics of it as well, and saying, if we do this, what else happens, rather than this is how you bat, this is how you bowl, this is how you field. I'd like to say this is how the fielders will react to you batting. This is how the bowler will react to you standing in the square. So I like the technicalities of it rather than the this, then this.
Yeah. No, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Because that's just such an important part of the game that people miss, actually, don't they?
It is. I think it's the most important part of the game. When you do play at a high level, then everybody knows that. So if you don't, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
You've got to match them step by step, and otherwise you're going down.
Yeah, I can understand that.
There's simple things like probably the best male batter ever that I've seen was Uriah Rennie, the football referee.
Yeah.
Well, he was my bowler.
Oh, wow.
I was backstop to him. Now, Yuri could hit the ball further than anybody at all, but generally speaking, he hit it in the same place. So those teams that were tactically aware knew where to field. So he wasn't always the top scorer.
Yeah.
Even though he was always the best batter. And if you speak to old players around the country now, they will remember Uriah as a rounders player, not a referee.
Yeah. So I suppose because cricket's a similar thing, isn't it? Striking game.
Well,
so you have similar with cricket with where you place your fielders, isn't it? So I imagine rounders had similar sort of tactical.
They do, and when I'm coaching, which isn't in the book, in the coaching manual, I will ask people what sport they play. And I'll do my coaching based on what sport they play, because they have muscle memory. So I try to use that. So if I see somebody which I think is punching the ball, you can bet they've done some boxing training. If you see somebody sort of pushing the ball, you can bet they've been shot putting. So I build that in and try to not change it, but to use it in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. So in everything that you did, so obviously you did quite a lot of umpiring as well, have you?
Oh yeah.
So tell us about your umpiring and the games that you've done.
Well, I've umpired at every level, so but I was always a maverick in it because I in effect wrote the rules as they were. I mean, they were always there, but the analysis of the rules and what they actually meant and why they were written was all in my head. So people were still initially interpreting rules. I think they still do. They interpret rules, and I would be able to explain, I know what you mean, but that's not the reason the rule is there. The rule is there because of this, and that's what we play. So they got to know that, if they want to know something about the rules, just ask Alan what the interpretation is. So, and I found that really, well, humbling, really. But I liked it as well.
Yeah, well, when you've done the rewrite, I know in rugby league I got really involved in the interpretation and the rewriting internationally of the law. We have laws, and it is the interpretation that differed from other countries, and that's so key, isn't it? So
Yes, yeah.
that everyone understands the interpretation, so that that there's no problems when you're playing each other.
That's right. And it's important, I think, and I've only just come back to it, that a few years ago, because every 3 years there's a rules review, and I saw one or two of the rules that were wanting to be changed. So Terry and I, we went to the rules meeting with the board, and we listened to the recommendations, and then I was able to say, well, actually, this is here because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you change that to what they want, then you've got to change that and that and that and that.
Yeah.
We'd actually rewritten the rules such that nothing could be changed that had an effect on another rule.
Yeah.
Unless you address that as well.
Yeah.
So that's something I think was interesting that I introduced.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And actually very clever.
Well, it also means that you're not changing the rules just because somebody with a loud voice says, let's change this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it changes the whole playing of the game, doesn't it? If you change certain rules.
It does. And very often people will want to introduce a rule which I knew was covered somewhere else with another rule.
Mm.
So I would say you don't need this new rule because you can apply this one.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I'm probably going to do now. Be available for Rounders England. When they want to change rules, just have a chat and see what the history of it is.
Yeah, because you're a vice president, aren't you?
Yes, and that's brilliant. And I like to. Well, the rules of vice president say that you've got to remain involved.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
So what is your role of vice president then? What do you do? And
well, I mentioned earlier I'm trying to get something off the ground now, so I don't stand on anybody's toes, but I dip mine in the water. So I'm currently attending Nuffield Health Centre gym, and I just thought, well, there's so many fit, active men and women there. Why haven't they got a Rounders team?
Yeah.
So I've spoken to them, and people want to play. Nuffield want to support it. So I've suggested to the I think it's called National Competitions Manager or whatever his role is. I've spoken to him, emailed him, and I've told him I've got him a link. If he puts a tournament on in August, you will get teams. They can link it with Nuffield and Macmillan Cancer Care, and do good for both.
Oh, that sounds fabulous.
So he has got back to me and said he's very interested. But Nuffield have 127 gyms around the country.
Oh, wow.
As I said to him, that opens it up. If you just get Sheffield off the ground, then Nuffield, Leicester, Nottingham, Derby, Hull, they're all going to want to play because they'll challenge them.
Yeah. Oh, what a great idea.
Well, the funny thing about ideas is they become great when they pop up, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. So absolutely, and it's making them happen, isn't it? In the end of the day, putting them into practice. So you and Terry Woolhouse were partners in crime, from what I can tell, to what you've just said and what I've read about you. You did some around selling Rounders equipment as well, didn't you?
Yes. Well, as I say, I met Terry when I was 16.
Yeah.
By the time I was 20 and helping with the England Rounders teams, we realised that the quality of equipment was shocking. So we set up what was called WAFT Sports. That's WAFT, which is Alan Fergus and Terry Woolhouse. So that's that. So yes, so we set up a company just producing really good quality equipment, and then my role in that was to develop it to make it better.
Mm,
So the aluminium bat that was in production by a company called Apollo, we improved it, so you could swing it better, and it didn't go ping when you hit the ball, because if
mm.
it went ping, everybody knew where the ball was going. So, so we developed that. We reinvented the rounders ball completely, and we made it a cork center, a calf skin outer, totally waterproof for 30 minutes. And what else did we do? I think that, I mean, they're the two main things. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we did that, and of course at that time the England team all played with that equipment.
Mm.
It was the only real equipment available out there that wasn't, Mickey Mouse stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So did you sell that generally, or was it just to the Rounders community?
And we had a WAF website, and yes, so that became quite busy. But again, we ran it for about 15 years and never made a profit, because we sold things for basically what it cost.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
our intention wasn't to become millionaires or, you know, commercial giants. We just wanted Rounders to have the right equipment.
yeah, yeah. Oh, what wonderful way of doing things, isn't it?
Well, we
And your
also
passion for Rounders.
Yeah, well, we also spent a lot of the profits on the England team, because probably the first 5 years before Rounders England took over, the England Rounders team was kitted out by me and Terry. We got the kit and we provided it,
Mm,
and the equipment. So
yeah.
we were helped. I mean, because sometimes the kit didn't fit, so we had one of the parents of one of the players, she would do all the sewing and taking in and make him fit. So
Mm,
it was a real good community. It really was.
yeah. And when you sort of look back at all your involvement, um, how does that make you feel when you're sort of
Well,
now sitting there in the what was the office?
yeah, it's been brilliant. I mean, it'll probably wear off now, because I won't be playing, and won't be getting out there. But it's always been great, because if I turn up at an event, people introduce me, and they'll say, oh, if you want to know anything about Rounders, ask Alan. He wrote them. They'll say things like that. I know I didn't write them. I just
Mm,
rehashed them or whatever. But it's great, because they give you that, and also because I've been England team manager, they'll introduce me as, oh, Alan used to manage the England team. So you get a lot of respect, and that's nice.
mm. You,
It really is.
you sound like you've got some really, really, you talk about it and you smile as you talk about your memories
Yeah.
of your involvement. And that's really lovely, isn't it? That really, right from being a young boy at primary school, Rounders, apart from that little period where you weren't allowed to play, has been a really, really major part of your life.
It has, and I get told off a lot, because that generally now I'm either talking about Rounders or the allotment. I don't really talk about anything else. So yeah, it
Uh,
can become very boring.
is there anything you've missed off that you'd like to talk about today?
Well, one of the things I'm particularly proud about is that well, South Yorkshire, we organised the first mixed um, England versus Ireland rounders match.
Oh, right. Oh, it was England Ireland. It wasn't the Wales one you were talking
No,
about
no,
earlier.
no. We organised. Well, this was mixed. The initial England teams were ladies, but the first mixed one was against Ireland in 1986, I believe,
Right.
to coincide with their millennium. And we played in Phoenix Park, And so I represented England at Rounders, and we challenged them to softball or Gaelic Rounders. So we played both games. We lost at their game, Gaelic Rounders, but we beat them in Phoenix Park in the National Rounders, and I did manage to score.
Well, that's even better, isn't it?
Well, it makes it better that they've never had another England Rounders team, really.
Yeah,
I think, no,
wow.
actually, I tell a lie. They have had one. They did recreate it. A Rounders game, England versus Wales, probably around 2000. And yeah, and one of my friends played in that, Glenn Oxley, whose son is a presenter for sport on Sheffield, Radio Sheffield.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the following that, another good event was last year or the year before. Glenn's son, Adam, organised an event at Sheffield Arena for the Guinness Book of Records. So Rounders now holds the Guinness Book of Records for the longest played game, which was just over 24 hours. So I helped umpire in that one.
Oh, wow. So when was that?
I think it was October 22.
Right, okay. And how does that link with the Burnley? Was that the most players? There was a world record
Yes, it was after that.
Yeah.
But yes, but this was a game for the longest played game.
Longest played game. Wow. You've got some accolades, haven't you? And you've got some trophies behind you and things that.
Well, I have, but this sounds strange. It's not meant to be big-headed, but I got so many trophies, but I got just as many trophies for 10-pin bowling. And we used to have a big full wall display, but that went, and so did my trophies. And I can ask my wife where they went, and she doesn't know.
Oh dear.
But I think she does, really.
Yeah. So you're a collector and a displayer of your awards.
I was. Now
yeah.
it's wearing off. I was given another award about, when was it? I'm just looking up. You can't see it really, can you? Can you see where I'm pointing, just in the top corner?
Oh yeah. That the cabinet up there. Yeah.
That says 50 years in Rounders. And it was awarded to me by the league. And they've got a picture of one of my England teams.
Yeah.
They've got a picture of an award being presented by, I've forgotten his first name, Gower. Used to play England cricket in Leicester.
Oh yes,
David Gower.
David Gower, yeah.
So he's on it with us. And then when I retired, the president shaking my hand. So they'd managed to get all the old pictures and put them together in an award for me. So that was brilliant.
Oh, how lovely. Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing. And I am sure we're going to be coming back to you with to pick your brains around the history and making sure the timeline's right and everything for the history of Rounders. You've had a phenomenal career and life in Rounders, and it's people like you that sort of build those communities and make sure standards are there and continue doing it just for the absolute pleasure. You can see the pleasure when you're talking about it. So thank you very much for taking your time to talk to me today. And I'm hoping I'll see you at some of the festivals and some of the places around in your role as Vice President.
That'll be great. Thank you. Thank you.